very interesting topic. Okay, maybe let me start with the very quick overview from our perspective on how we look at this industry. Broadly, we think the road shared mobility market is around 46 to 48 billion dollars, divided among self-drive, retail car rentals, car leasing, ride hailing, street hailing, which is the traditional unorganized play, corporate mobility, and public transportation. Now, and it's a very large market. Honestly speaking, a large part of it is unorganized. And in the recent survey, we did a survey called Global Automotive Consumer Study, which we do for India as well, where we found that nearly 68% of the customers are willing to give up ownership. Okay, and the interesting insight is 58% are willing to give up ownership in the rural and semi-urban towns. All right, so having said this, right, let me just open this up. And probably this is the question to you, Pavan, to start with. Let's talk about the market potential broadly. So what do you think is the scale of this opportunity in tier 2 and tier 3? You've tasted success in tier 1 markets or metros. What do you think is the opportunity in that place?
First of all, thanks for having me here. So one of the theses that Rapido has always had is back in 2015 when Rapido started, there were already incumbents there. But one thing that was clear to us was there are two things that are missing in the existing solutions. One is affordability. The second biggest thing is the creation of the market. Back then, we started with our core product of bike taxi. Rapido was the first player to introduce bike taxi to this country. And 10 years later, now Rapido is into both two-wheelers, three-wheelers, and four-wheelers. And 40% of our rides currently come from tier 2 and tier 3 cities. The interesting part is, while Rapido is currently the leading ride-sharing player, doing almost 4 million, 40 lakh rides every single day, what we still see is we are hardly getting started. As of today, there are almost 2.5 million autos, 25 lakh autos on the roads of the country. And each of them doing almost 10 rides. But if you see the entire online market as of today, it's all players put together. It's less than 2 million. So hardly 10% penetration. The same goes with cabs. Cabs, there are almost 2 million cabs, 20 lakh cabs. Hardly 5 lakhs of these cabs itself are online, or they come online. So our thesis has always been that the offline market, the unorganized market, is much, much larger. And in terms of two-wheelers, if you come, the penetration of supply, while Rapido has already created 80 lakh part-timers and full-timers in the two-wheeler industry. But if you compare to the scale of the number of bikes in the country, it would be minuscule. You have around 200 million bikes in this country. And we are just talking about Rapido and the other players converting hardly 10 million. So if you see the scope is humongous. And I think all the ride-sharing players, including Rapido and especially Rapido, we are just getting started.
Great. Pratip, the question to you is, I think, are there any structural cost advantages in tier 2 and tier 3 cities, okay, compared to, let's say, the metros?
Well, so I think if you look at the overall structure of costs across tier 1 and tier 2 markets, there is a significant difference. And this also boils down to how the unit economics is calculated in tier 1 markets. So if I have to break down the cost structure, I will look at it from two perspectives. One is the amount of money that the organization spends to basically acquire drivers and passengers. That is one side of the cost. The other one is basically, see, let's understand this before I go into the cost details. Uh, as Pavan beautifully mentioned about the overall kind of dynamics of tier 2 and 3 markets and the kind of potential there is, but we have to be mindful about the fact that tier 2 and 3 markets are basically markets where we are creating a category. And creating a category and a habit is always costly. So, think about a tier 1 market where I am competing with multiple players, and we all know this, that tier 1 is saturated, and basically if somebody is growing, we are growing at the cost of somebody else's market share. It's pretty saturated. But if you look at the tier 2, 3 markets, you're basically building habits and a category, and building a category is costly. So if I look at the cost structure, there is no inherent benefit per se, because you have to build a category and you have to keep investing till there is a habit that happens. And also Pavan beautifully mentioned about the offline hailables, right? So offline market is humongous in tier 2 and 3 markets. And that habit has to be moved to online. So to build a category, to answer your question in a very structured format, to build a category, you have to invest. You have to keep investing in the initial stages, and that investment builds up the cost in the initial days. But over a period of time, when you see that there is enough penetration in a tier 2 market, and we have successfully seen that in India in one city, when there is enough penetration, this cost somewhere automatically fades down, and you start getting benefits out of it. Bear in mind in the unit economics also, since in the tier 2 markets, your ride fare will be much lesser compared to tier 1 markets, so the take rate will also be different there. So multiple dynamics decide that, but if you ask me, in the initial stage when you're building the market, you have to keep investing on the driver side, on the passenger side, in the marketplace. And beyond that, when the market matures, like you can really take the cake or somebody else will come and take the cake, that's a different story. But the ride-hailing market is built over a period of time. So cost structure will evolve. Now it's an investment market for most companies.
Got it. So the key is saturation. So once you saturate the market, then you really start to see the cost advantage. Now, coming back, the next question is, it's a follow-on. How do you ensure the driver partner income, given, again, this is a hypothesis, right, that the utilization of the vehicle will be low, right? So how does the math work in your case, and how do you see it playing out over the years?
Yeah, so the most important thing that we need to understand, the difference between a tier 1 and a tier 2, especially when it comes in the perspective of a ride sharing, what we believe is economic activity in that region. Because that is the trigger for people to go out. And hence, people will use a transportation app or offline or online. Definitely, while the economic activity is slightly lesser, but with the democratization of information, with the help of internet and everything, we are actually seeing a lot of economic activity even in tier 2 and tier 3 towns. Just to cite an example, earlier in a small town called Jorhat in the northeast, before Rapido launched, I think the existing transportation systems mostly shut down by 9:30, 10. What I mean by that is the dominant forms of transportation, the bus, the e-rickshaws, the share autos, the conventional and unconventional modes. But what we have seen is, after Rapido launched bike taxi in that city, we still get 20% of the orders beyond 10 p.m. in a small city like Jorhat. So there is definitely demand, there is definitely affordability. Obviously, we had to customize. And how did we customize? We had to change our model upside down. From a commission model that was predominantly going on in a ride-sharing industry, we literally had to do away with commissions. Right now, Rapido has completely changed its business model to become a technology provider, a SaaS player. And with the help of this, what happened on the pricing is there came a flexibility for all the captains to choose a price that they want. Now, this is the interesting part about tier 2, and in general, in a country like India. The time value for a person is not yet clearly defined in this country. Some people are willing to work for 40 rupees per hour. Some people are willing to work for 120 rupees per hour. In some tier 1, some people are still working for 160 rupees per hour, right? So because you have a range of options, what Rapido has done is, Rapido has given the pricing flexibility back to the captain. And hence, depending on their need and the customer's affordability, we have been able to provide them the tools to match as a lead generator, as a SaaS player. And that's how we have seen maintaining good retentions, above 85+% retentions in all our categories.
Great. I think this is very encouraging, to be honest. One of the things that I was wondering about in our study, we figured out that the form factor is still tilted towards three-wheelers, okay, largely, followed by two-wheelers and then four-wheelers. But you're saying that two-wheelers will have a dominant share going forward. Is that a fair statement to make? And maybe it's a question to both of you about the form factors going forward. Will Indians be more open to adopting two-wheelers like they did with the three-wheelers or four-wheelers?
I'll start. So I think it's not going forward. I believe our existing scale, and we are the market leaders in ride-hailing industry. So our data is also a characteristic. We have the largest, especially in tier 2 and tier 3 markets, bike taxi leads a lot over three-wheelers. And the fundamental over there is simply this: bike has always been a sunk cost for that person, versus auto had a financial obligation or investment angle, or right from the moment the captain bought it. We call our drivers as captains. So right from the moment they have bought it, that investment return had to be delivered, versus for bikes, especially in a country like India, which is the home to the largest two-wheelers across the world, largest manufacturers exist in this country, bike has been more of a personal vehicle and hence a sunk cost. So the affordability of this ride-sharing category, is always better than the rest.
Got it. What about you?
Yeah. So I think when it comes to two-wheelers, it is not a question of tomorrow anymore. As of today, two-wheelers is definitely one of the dominant form factors, and I believe it is not only about tier 2, tier 3 cities, it is also in tier 1 cities, because let's understand this. Given the current scenario of the overall congestions in the tier 1 cities, think about a professional who wants to go from point A to point B. Sometimes the easiest way, and not only the most cost-effective, but also the easiest and the most efficient form of transport is a bike taxi. And this is not again specific to India. I was just speaking with my counterpart, who is a director of Brazil in LATAM also. The fastest growing form factor is two-wheelers. It is not four-wheelers or three-wheelers. It is for two-wheelers. What it indicates is the fact that there is a shift, and I think we need to start with accepting the fact that two-wheelers are here to stay, and it is going to dominate. And just also on the similar lines of what Pavan mentioned, our data also very clearly shows that a huge percentage of the two-wheeler driver partners are basically part-timers. They use think about this, like a college kid. He's basically going to college and also driving in the evening and financing his education with the same one. There are people who works day shift and use the bike at the night. So what I mean to say is that India being a licensed market, it's always going to be supply starved. We have to understand this from ride-hailing perspective. It is not a P2P market like in US. It's a licensed market, and all licensed markets are typically supply starved. There, we need to very clearly accept the fact that bike taxis, which are white number plate, private vehicles, will double up as a commercial vehicle in terms of people transport. And it is only going to go bigger in tier 1 as well. Tier 2, tier 3, it's a very good entry point for any ride-hailing company, because to test a ride-hailing platform, it's cheaper for the people there. Acceptance, becomes faster, and also in tier 2, 3 markets, the ownership of two-wheeler is very high. So converting that to supply becomes easier. So this is only going to stay. This is only going to scale. From the regulation point of view, we need acceptance, and we need clear regulations which support this, rather than there's a recent judgment from the Honorable High Court of Bangalore, right? That with time we need to change, else you don't evolve. So I think on similar lines, right? This is acceptance, regulation, and formalization of this form factor is going to be the next big thing in ride-hailing industry, for sure.
Great. Now let's switch gears a little bit in terms of, you mentioned about how digital, you are like, you've gotten rid of the commission part. I'm sure technology is helping you. And we all know how the, you can say tier 2, tier 3 customer is. Nearly 60% share in terms of digital payment is with the non-metros. The average internet usage is 30 GB compared to, let's say, 23 GB in a metro. Now, are these things really helping? The digital, is there a digital divide between rural and you can say urban in that sense, or this digital adoption in the rural India or the non-metros really helping adoption in a big way?
Definitely. I would say definitely. Not just for Rapido, I think for a lot of startups. 2016 should be a year that everybody needs to thank for, because that is when the internet costs in this country have come down significantly with the introduction of a new player. And Rapido is currently in 200 plus cities, going to 500 cities by the end of this year. And the confidence that we have is because the adoption of technology is much more easier and faster than ever before, and even in tier 2 and tier 3. And just because of the fact that a lot of these smaller cities do not have a central transportation system, do not have a lot more options, both in terms of convenience, in terms of affordability, sometimes as simple as accessibility itself. We clearly see the need. And because internet is so accessible over there right now, we see them adopting our app much faster. Just to quote an example, in a small town like Kurnool, Rapido is the largest downloaded app, ahead of e-commerce, ahead of any other, only second to payments, but ahead of any other industry. And but at the same time, these markets have their own requirements. One of the things that Rapido has introduced is Rapido Pink, where people have some reservations in traveling behind a stranger's bike, a verified stranger's bike. We said, why don't we introduce an option that will make it more comfortable for women? So we introduced Rapido Pink, specifically aiming at, again, tier 2, tier 3. So we keep introducing tools, and the adoption we have seen has been not just healthy, but a lot encouraging.
Same question to you as well.
I think technology and internet penetration has been the cornerstone for any kind of internet revolution that has happened in tier 2, tier 3. It's not specific to ride-hailing per se, but I think if you look at the growth of e-commerce and the penetration of internet, and not only e-commerce, look at the social media penetration and stuff. So I think this all basically tells the same story, that it's definitely due to the kind of internet availability and accessibility. At inDrive, what we have seen is very interesting, right? So the model of inDrive is very unique, and globally we have this model where we let the passenger decide and the driver decide. We don't decide the price for them. We obviously have a fair price in mind, and which is based on multiple factors, but final price is decided using technology by the driver and the passenger. This is something that we have seen, there is enough and huge love amongst Indians, because they predominantly want to negotiate and be in the driver's seat rather than being on the receiver side. So I think using technology, and so I think revolution of internet is definitely one part of it, and payments, everything definitely really helped. But I think also having the right platform in terms of technology which resonates with the people on the ground is very important to ensure that there is a product market fit. If I go to a tier 2 market, and we have ample examples of global companies not being able to scale and failed in India because the product was not tailored to what an Indian audience sitting in some corner of a tier 2 city wants. I think that level of customization is needed, and the base remains accessibility, there's technology and payment interfaces and everything, but I think having the right technology which brings product market fit is very important. And I think with inDrive, it's been a little easier compared to other global companies, because I think the inherent nature of the product is something that India loves. So it's definitely been a boon. It helps companies like us go to the corners of the country and solve real problems of transportation. Because as a part of the DNA of the organization, we strongly believe that transportation opens up opportunities. Because if you don't have transportation, it stalls you from finding the next jobs, meeting your next business partner, a lot of things, right? So I think opportunity is related directly to transport. And to unlock that, we need the right product, right platform, right regulation. So these are all bits and pieces of the entire puzzle. But kudos to the government for the payment interface, UPI, the penetration. It's been amazing. And also definitely the internet availability, 5G, 4G access in tier 3 markets. It has been the fundamental based on which we have been able to build it, for sure.
Great. I think we'll need to see over a period of time, because what you guys have been doing and a lot of others as well is about democratization, correct? So getting away from commission, but it's also a business angle to it. You subscribe that person, now he or she is literally bound to use your app as such. But let me flip it a little, right? I mean, in our study, again, GACS, you can look it up, but Indians are not very brand loyal. They switch, okay, whether it is about owning a vehicle and even apps. Most of the people have multiple apps on their phone. So what do you think? How do you engage people to be on your platform? Or it's okay for them to have multiple platforms to work with, including now ONDC and others are also trying to become, you can say, a single platform for various other people to latch on to. So what's your perspective from both of you?
Yeah, Indians are not brand loyal. While I won't directly comment on that statement, what I can definitely comment is Indians have always been value loyal. Where they get the best value, they do it, they switch. That's where their loyalty has always been. One of the reasons why Rapido has been able to grow not just in tier 1s, but tier 2s and tier 3s alike, is exactly because of the value that Rapido provides. A simple example, Rapido has always taken safety to the next level, because we have been the first players to introduce bike taxi in this country. And we, right from the start, realized that safety has to be its corner pillar. So, so we thought, how can we give more and more safety to users, especially women? And then one of the instances is, when you are from a small town and your son or daughter, you being a parent, your son or daughter, if they are going out, what do you do as a parent? Once they reach or during the ride, you'll just try to give a call. Sab kuch sahi hai kya beta, beti? Right? We said, If that is giving a lot of safety, sense of safety, okay, if that is the kind of comfort that the Indian user, especially a tier 2, tier 3 user is looking for, why don't we also do it? As of today, every ride that is happening in the night, Rapido actually gives a safety check-in call for all the rides. And this definitely our users have appreciated it a lot more. Not just that, in terms of even if there's a slightest deviation from their expected route, Rapido proactively intervenes and asks, hey, is everything safe? I think at the same time, so this is on the safety angle. Like I just mentioned, because of our change in model, we give the pricing control back to the user. And that helps them to get the best price depending on their circumstance. In the morning, people want to go fast. In the evening, maybe they have, when they are returning, getting off work or returning from their workplace, they have a slightly more time. As a platform, if you're mandating a price, it's like almost mandating a regulation, which now not goes well for all the parties all the time, right? So just giving back this control, again, helped us gain a lot more loyalty from these users. So what I can say is Rapido, like not just for Rapido, for any brand, I think their users are going to look for value. And as long as a brand provides that, I think they are going to be loyal.
What about you?
I think pretty much the same. So India, the consumers in India are super smart. They understand how to define value for themselves and ensure that they stick to that value and extract it, if not from one player, but from the other one. And it is said multiple number of times, but I think Indian customers or passengers or users are also a lot pampered because they want the best product at the least price, that too with discounts and also added customer support. So I think they're a lot pampered. So what is defined as value is very individualistic, but from our surveys, we have definitely seen a couple of things, right? Obviously, pricing, India is very price sensitive, right? From tier 1 to tier 3, everybody is price sensitive. The degree of the sensitiveness and the elasticity changes, but everybody is price sensitive. So I think definitely that drives value. And the second is obviously the freedom of choice. Because everybody at the end of the day, as human beings, want to be in the control of the decision that they are making and not to be really told what you have to do. So I think value is driven by multiple facets: pricing, freedom of choice, and definitely other parameters as well. If somebody really wants a business class travel, they will only choose the app which gives them a business class travel. So I think value depends, and it exists in pockets. But if we have to really generalize, it's definitely pricing, freedom of choice, and people are super smart to identify where they can get it, and they are super sharp to change their loyalty immediately the moment they find it somebody else is providing better value. So I think it challenges us as organizations to consistently innovate and keep providing value, and not only provide the old value which we have defined as a value factor, but also keep adding layers of value to it. So that the passenger or the user feels that there is consistent development of value that I'm getting out of my player of choice, and there is no reason I should shift. So it challenges the organizations really hard, and I think that's a norm in India across e-commerce, across ride-hailing. It's been the tune of the day.
So value conscious, not as much as brand conscious. So value loyal. Okay, interesting. Now, coming to infrastructure and policy support, right? Do you think we have done enough in our country? There's a lot of initiatives that the government has taken up for, especially e-mobility and various other things across the board. Various state governments are also joining it. Do you think there are learnings that you would want to be brought from outside India, or some other innovative things that you would like to propose to the government?
Definitely, I would commend the governments existing and before, for sure, for the amount of focus they have on infrastructure development. But I also think it's a journey. It's a journey. What I would like to bring from other countries' observation is customization. again, simply going to a difference between a tier 1 and tier 2, I think just the lack of a central transportation system, like let's say a metro, or even the bus connectivity, because both these options are a function of density. They are hype capex. They are a function of demand in that particular city. So in a tier 2, tier 3, which is having upcoming economic activity, okay, the density is going to be slightly lesser. And hence, the central transportation systems are not completely optimized. In these scenarios, the policies, the regulations especially, they need to start taking into account these minor differences and start being, if anything, one step ahead of tier 1 cities policies and regulations. Because in these urban centers, we have a lot of choice. We have a lot of choice in terms of getting everything to your doorstep. In a lot of the other cities, T2, T3, especially things like cities like Siliguri, existence of that infrastructure itself is not there. Like a normal kirana or a bus at 9:30 p.m. or 11 p.m. Right? So, but at the same time, what is there, available over there is the people's aspiration, if you ask me, it is as equal as a tier 1 person. Okay, if not, sometimes they are more hungry, right? While we are driving towards convenience, they are driving towards more hunger. Like hunger to sort of grow, which is what you see in the tier 2 cities coming up. And there is existing infrastructure. So more focus on shared mobility options, leveraging the existing infrastructures. I think that is one thing I would definitely like the government to sort of think a bit much more than what they are currently thinking about tier 1 cities. I think that's pretty much.
Pratip?
Yeah, so if you look at infra development, let's understand what can tech players like us do. Technology can give two things, right? One is efficiency and one is access. That is all a technology platform can bring. We cannot bring in infrastructural development. But I think what is very, very important for government, I will split your question into two parts. One is infrastructure, one is policy. Infrastructure-wise, I think it's imperative. It's imperative for tier 2, 3 governments and local bodies to partner with tech platforms. And this public-private partnership is very important, where we as platforms bring in technology, access, and efficiency, whereas the government basically confirms on the overall infrastructure development. It's extremely crucial because there is definite deficit. For example, not only for intra-city transport, but also for intercity transport. There is huge deficit. A person who wants to travel between a tier 3 market to another tier 3 market might not find more than 2 buses across the day. And that does not really solve a problem. Sometimes you need it now, and then you have an super expensive intercity cab, which most of the people cannot afford. So I think we need to solve for infrastructure and definitely partner with tech platforms to ensure that there is efficiency in the system, because else efficiency will go out of the window. That is one part. And access to more and more people, because we can, as platforms, drive kind of new passenger acquisition and help them, accept these platforms in a better way because of the penetration of internet. So that is one part. Secondly, when it comes to regulation, and very specific to the question you asked, let me make a very bold statement here. I think from any other country, what we need to take as a learning, specifically in India, because of the density of traffic and people, is P2P. Because the number of vehicles that we have on the road, we all live in tier 1 markets. We know how many people drive from Delhi to Gurgaon, one person in a SUV every day, and that clogs the road. So person who is complaining about traffic is basically the reason traffic is there. We need to identify that problem. So how do we open up P2P so that that one SUV can become a travel car for 5 people rather than one person? I think P2P will really solve a lot of problem which we need to learn from other countries. I know it's a regulatory roadblock and challenge, but might definitely open up kind of more opportunity in terms of decluttering the cities and increasing efficiency in vehicle usage. And definitely, I think one more thing is incentivizing electric vehicle usage in tier 2 and 3 markets. It's super critical because currently we don't see, along with infrastructure, there is no incentive in tier 2, 3 markets to adapt a lot of EVs. So if that is also coming from the government, that will be super helpful. So infrastructure plus policy will really make it successful, whereas we provide accessibility and efficiency through the platforms.
I think one last question I'll squeeze in, our time is up, but as EVs grow, subsidy per vehicle is any which way is going to go down. But anyways, you are a tech first, industry, I must say, shared mobility as such. So what innovations from a technology standpoint, maybe one top one that you have in mind that can unlock the shared mobility space in India? And probably everybody talks about four-wheelers, talk about 2 and 3 more. As an example, right, maps, right, it doesn't give you micro-mobility perspectives, okay? I don't know, I mean, are there any big innovations that you're seeing or working on, or the industry should adopt to unlock the shared mobility space in India?
One of the things that Rapido has always been working is, yes, how to leverage the existing infrastructure. That has been the theme of this company. How to leverage existing infrastructure of this country to solve the problem of commute. We did that with bikes that are already on the roads. 200 million bikes, 95% of them traveling as a solo passenger without a pillion rider. The second one that we are currently tinkering with is auto share. Again, the same thing. There are a lot of autos, three-wheelers that are currently plying. Can we use the same infrastructure to take more than one passenger? Now, with a incentive for, with a solution or a product that is a win-win for both the user as well as the captain. It might be hard for an individual private owner to get convinced, but for a person who's doing this for a livelihood, we believe that there is a product market fit, and that is something that we are currently doing. The same with e-rickshaws. 10 years ago, this place in Delhi itself had lesser e-rickshaw penetration, a decade ago. Right now, more than 2 million, if I'm right, across the belt of Delhi, Uttar Pradesh, everything, all have been formed. How can we leverage that infrastructure? So we are more betting on shared mobility because we believe, yes, like Pratip has been mentioning, our roads do not need newer vehicles. We need to maximize we need to leverage the existing vehicles to solve the congestion problems. And that is something we are working towards.
A quick input from you, and
Yeah,
then we
I
close
think
it.
One major area of involvement, and this links to the previous question that you asked, this is about infrastructure development from government side. If we look at government infrastructure building in terms of metros and a lot of public transport options, one major reason why there is less adoption is because there is no last mile connectivity. A lot of people in tier 2, 3 markets do not want to go to that bus stand because it's like 3 kilometers to go there. And rather they would take something else and directly reach the destination. So with increasing infrastructure, we need to also align to the fact that last mile connectivity to this government infrastructure is very important. So I think going forward as ride-hailing platforms, we really need to solve for this last mile. A last 3-4 kilometer distance from the metro stations to the bus stoppages, from the railway stations is going to really be critical in urban mobility. And I think tech can solve that by creating hubs of pick up and drop. So maybe we will be looking at something like that in the future.
Thank you so much. I think our time's up. Times is up, but thanks for an interesting session.